Baltimore. Don't ask him about preseason games, oh no. Stuffing things in Griffin Basso. Despite it being on the internet, he can call it what he wants, so Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Duke sucks.
From him. Brown is the back. Beck steps up, delivers downfield, intercepted! Jamari Sharp makes the pick that will clinch Indiana's first national championship.
Yeah, Xavier, we had all that practice, and you were this close.
So close.
This close to nailing it. It's okay. We sometimes lose our perfect game. You got to get out of the way quick. Then you don't have the pressure of the perfect game riding the rest of the time.
Already gave up the hit.
Good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Good to be back in studio. Hope everybody enjoyed their holiday weekend. And that was courtesy of ESPN. Unbelievable, man. I mean, not the game itself. That's very believable at this point that Indiana won. In fact, I think a lot of people were surprised they didn't cover. But unbelievable story of Indiana, a program so irrelevant, so utterly and completely irrelevant, that I actually did this research last night, and this one kind of blew my mind. I was at the Monday Night Trivia, and one of my buddies was like, "So Indiana just doesn't matter in football," and I said, "Yeah, it's somehow whatever you think it is, it's less than that.
Right.
Like that's how irrelevant." Indiana football has been. And he was like, well, how irrelevant have they been? And I was trying to figure out a way to do this, so I actually looked this up and did this math. Do you know that all time in the history of the Baltimore Ravens, how many football players who have actually played in a game have been from Indiana University?
I'm going to go with one.
One all time. You know what they have that in common with?
Who?
How many all-time Baltimore Ravens have been from Indiana University of Pennsylvania?
One.
One all-time.
There we go.
As many Indiana alums have been Baltimore Ravens as Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
That's kind of crazy.
Alums have been Baltimore Ravens. And for those scoring at home, I guess I should have saved this for tidbit, but it's what it is. Former tight end John Jones was from Indiana, Pennsylvania, and from the Super Bowl 47 championship team, the man that was most known as being the wide receiver that allegedly Joe Flacco personally campaigned for and was drafted because of him. Tandon Doss was the only Indiana Hoosier to have ever been a Baltimore Raven. That is remarkable, and the Indiana Hoosiers are now national champions. And what do we learn from that? It's the same thing I said after their last win and after the win before that and after they beat Ohio State. I think there's going to be a mistake that people are going to they're going to make and say, well, this is about this era of college football. This is about the fact that you can do this now. This is about the NIL. Stop. You're embarrassing yourself. That some of that might have something to do with it, or not. It's about the coach. This notion that anyone can just go do this is insane because no one else is doing it. There aren't three other Indianas, and this one just happened to be the one that won the national championship. No one else is doing this. Otherwise, the playoff was still littered with the Blue Bloods. It's not like this year, all of a sudden, you got to the semifinals, and it was Indiana and Arizona State and Rutgers and Missouri. And I get it, Missouri was fairly good this year, but they weren't ever competing for anything, and they didn't beat anybody of relevance. And I know that Vanderbilt was kind of spunky and fun. But Indiana is the only one that was doing this. Because this is still essentially impossible. And I get it. Words have meaning. So I can't say impossible because it happened. We all witnessed it. But the notion that this is just the new era of college football, nothing suggests that's the case. The only thing that this suggests is that Curt Cignetti might be the greatest coach in the history of sport.
Yeah.
There is no parallel to this. I mean, Butler nearly won a college basketball championship. That would have been sort of like this. There is essentially no comparison to Indiana football winning a national championship and going undefeated. It's magical. And as far as the game itself was concerned, it was quite thrilling, obviously, in the fourth quarter after not being very thrilling. A lot of people that were doing the bad bit, oh, this is proof that the season is too long. The game stinks. Okay, yeah, it got there. But I was stunned, for example, up 3, that Curt Cignetti didn't just try to win the game and throw the ball on third down and get a first down and have the game be over. I was stunned and in a way kind of thought that like he maybe deserved to pay the price because of it, because he had been perfectly aggressive earlier on in the game. Like remember the fourth down touchdown from Fernando Mendoza was a play where I think a lot of us were scratching our head like this is a tough conversion. Why are you doing this? And the answer was pretty clear. Like, we don't think that it matters to be up by 6 points. Being up by 6 doesn't help us all that much. It's a one-possession game still. We'd rather be up by 10. So when they had it on third down and played for the field goal to go up 6, I was stunned because I thought they had done everything right in the fourth quarter to say, we're going to go win the national championship. We're not going to run and hide and hope the clock runs out. We're going to go win the national championship. Now, in the end, obviously they made the play. A lot of people pointed out the kid who had the interception, Sharp, his uncle was the one that was called for the pass interference the last time Miami was in a national championship game in 2002,
Wow.
which extended the game. So kind of a tough blow. I don't know. I assume his uncle was rooting for his nephew and not for his alma mater, but
Right.
I don't know. That's tough, man. Like, I don't know what the line is
right.
between those two things. That's a tough thing. So that was kind of crazy. I was stunned that Curt Cignetti made the decision that he made, but obviously it worked out. Indiana wins the title, finishes the season undefeated, and presumably is going to be a threat for the foreseeable future because that dude ain't going anywhere, and that guy's a winner and has
Google him.
Yeah, Google him. That's right. Don't forget. I win. Google me, as he said famously when he was introduced. So crazy story. If that's what your expectation is, a lot of people have done that bit. This is proof that Maryland needs to move on and just find. Look, again, if they can get Curt Cignetti, Maryland needs to move on immediately. Immediately. If Curt Cignetti is available, by all means. Otherwise, you're just taking a lottery ticket and hoping for the best. And I understand why they didn't do it, because they didn't want to lose all their recruits and the players on their roster. I get it. But, I understand the jealousy. Trust me. I wish. God, I wish that Curt Cignetti was the coach at Maryland, because he might, again, be the greatest coach in the history of sport. Congratulations to Indiana. Unbelievable. Fun game in the end. It started off slow, but ended up being a very fun night of watching football. So I think that's all I have to say. I don't know. Roman Hemby, the former Terp and pride of Harford County. That's very cool. Congratulations to Roman Hemby. We'll try to catch up with him here in the next week or so when things start to settle down for him. I know a lot. Again, another story that people piled on a lot. Oh, he was forced out of Maryland. As I said, Maryland can only pay so many players. And so they kind of said to Roman Hemby, like, we understand it's probably time for you to look elsewhere. And that's the part of college football that is a bummer. Another conversation that I was having last night at trivia, like, doesn't it suck that these are both quarterbacks that were just mercenaries that have nothing to do with these schools, that didn't really go to these schools, that just showed up for 1 year at the end? And, like, to an extent, yeah. To an extent, that's a bummer. But I don't know. I mean, do we care all that much? Like, it's cool if you have a guy that's at a school for 4 years and work. I mean, that's a cool story, but do we really care? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's the type of thing that your grandfather cares about. But, like, why do we? Why do you care how many years a kid was out of school? Or I know people got worked up because there was this viral video going around of Carson Beck being asked if he was going to be going to class, and he was like, I graduated 2 years ago. I don't go to class. And everybody was like, this is everything that's wrong with college athletics. Like, okay. I mean, sure. I understand this, like, feeling of, like, college sports existed once upon a time to just be like high school sports. An extension, you went to school and you played sports. I get it. But then college sports became big business. So if you want me to be mad at Carson Beck, then I have to be mad at the people that are profiting off of Carson Beck. Like, everyone is in on this. It's this wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing where, like, none of this is real. None of this, we don't care about school unless the kid cares about school. If the kid cares about it, and Carson Beck did say, he was working on a graduate degree online, I assume, and so there's that. If he's taking advantage of it, good for him. But, like, the people that want to get worked up about these things, what part of it are you worked up about? What part are we canceling? Are you canceling players? If what you're mad about is I want all of these football players to be going to class all day, and if they're not, they shouldn't be playing college football. Like, okay, I, to some extent, kind of get your thought process, kind of understand it. But the schools want them there because they want to win.
Right.
Like, Miami doesn't want that rule to go into place because they want to win. And while Carson Beck did end up throwing a terrible interception at the end, he had him in the national championship game. So do you think they're going to cancel it? Like, if they don't, or if they do, there's going to be some other school somewhere that's going to let a kid who's not really going to class be their quarterback. So I understand broadly what you think you're mad about, but putting the toothpaste back in the tube is just, it has never happened in the history of humanity. It ain't going to happen today. And so I don't know. I just don't know why we're all that worked up about it. I mean, it'd be neat if there was a story, if somehow Malik Washington stays at Maryland for 4 years and develops into a great quarterback, and in the fourth year they become the new Indiana. Yeah, that's kind of a cool. I mean, it's never going to happen. Let's stop. It's never going to happen.
Unfortunately.
But that would be a neat story, and like we could say that's a neat story. I said that about Juju Reese in his senior year at Maryland. I was like, we need to kind of be respectful of like how cool this is. This isn't going to happen much, where someone grinds through 4 years, where they don't all go their way, and they stick it out, and they're a 4-year player at the same place, and they find success. And we need to respect and appreciate this story, because this just, we're not going to see many of these. The overwhelming likelihood is that we might never have another story like this. So respect it, appreciate it, and enjoy it when it does happen. And that's why I had such incredible respect and reverence for Juju Reese and everything that he went through. He wasn't a perfect player. He wasn't maybe an all-time Maryland great, but he did something very few people do. He stuck it out when he was struggling, when the team was struggling, through coaching change. He stuck it out at Maryland and wanted to be at home, and that was cool. I wouldn't have been mad at him if he had chosen elsewhere. Like, you're right, but I thought it was cool that he did that, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't ever introduce Xavier's here. I guess I just realized
what's going on.
That's Xavier Macaroni. That's how many times did you get called that in your life?
An endless amount.
It's not macaroni. It's macaroni.
Macaroni. Yep.
I think we might just stick with macaroni.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably easier.
Xavier is in for Griffin today. Appreciate you being here, pal. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Championship Sunday is coming up. my friend Kevin Van Valkenburg always says, this is the best day of the year for the real football fans. Like, if you're a real football fan, this is the best day of the year because it's like the last day that's yours. The Super Bowl's not yours. That belongs to, like, pop culture. Football fans, this is your last true day of just celebrating and watching football. And there are a few better places to do it. In fact, I would argue no better places to do it than Inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel, with the 100-foot media wall, with the great food and drink specials, with everyone living and dying on every play, particularly when you have no emotional connection. Like, it's a cool place to watch Ravens games, Orioles games, but when you have no connection, when you can just take it all in and have none of it hurt you, it really adds to, I'm into it, I'm not into it. Now, I know there's some weather in the forecast this weekend. We'll see how that plays out, but I would be making plans to be Inside Sports and Social. Normally, the weather folks are wrong anyway.
Yeah.
I'd be making your plans to be Inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel this Sunday for Championship Sunday. Coming up this morning here on GCR, we will be chatting with our friend John Congemi, former Baltimore Stallions quarterback. You don't even know what the Baltimore Stallions are. That doesn't even mean anything to you, Xavier Macaroni.
Unfortunately not.
The Baltimore Stallions once played in the Canadian Football League. It makes no sense. You can't explain it because, to your knowledge, Baltimore is not in Canada.
Yeah, last time I checked, no.
Yes,
no.
But they played in the Canadian Football League in 1994 and 1995 when we didn't have an NFL team in Baltimore and we wanted football back badly. And so the Canadian Football League had a southern expansion into cities like Baltimore and Memphis and Birmingham. And the Baltimore Stallions won the Grey Cup, which is the Canadian Football League Championship in 1995, the only American team to ever win the Canadian Football League Championship.
Isn't Baltimore great? Isn't it great?
John Congemi, former Baltimore Stallions quarterback. He's with CBS 4 in Miami. He's going to join us to talk about what happened. Well, not to talk about what happened. Sorry. What the Ravens are looking for in their next head coach, because they have scheduled a second interview with Dolphins defensive coordinator and former Baltimore Raven Anthony Weaver. So we'll talk to him about that. And another coach that interviewed with the Ravens. We'll see if he gets a second interview. Mike McDaniel, the former Dolphins head coach. We will talk about that with John Congemi. At 11:40, we're going to be joined by Katherine Fitzgerald of the Buffalo News. She covers the Bills. She is a Timonium native and went to NDP. Katherine will join us to discuss another candidate who has gotten a second or is going to have a second interview with the Baltimore Ravens. Current Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And we'll also talk to her about Sean McDermott as well, who may or may not end up being a candidate for the Ravens job after he was fired by the Bills yesterday. So we'll continue to dive in on Ravens candidates today. The latest, where we're at. One is off the board. Robert Saleh. Late last night, we find out he's headed to Tennessee. He's going to be the next head coach of the Titans. What can I tell you about Robert Saleh? I was sharing this. I was texting back and forth with our friend Josh Charles last night. I was told that the interview with Robert Saleh maybe didn't go so great. And we were joking that, like, hey, that seems like it might make sense considering, you know, he just got his ass kicked. And then the next morning is trying to do a Zoom. Like, I can understand. But that maybe I'll give you an example. I think the Kevin Stefanski thing is more disappointing to the Ravens than the Robert Saleh. I think that Kevin Stefanski was a legitimate candidate. They wanted to continue in the process. And so I think that was a bummer that he just took the Falcons job and didn't continue in the process. I don't know that Robert Saleh, they feel the same. Based on the information that I have tracked down, I think that maybe Robert Saleh was not even going to be part of the second round of interviews, which is surprising because I think he was considered one of the top candidates for the job, but it seems like he was not high on the list. The Stefanski thing, I think the question is, and I brought this up during the show I did with KZ yesterday, should the Ravens have abandoned the process and just hired Kevin Stefanski? Was he that good of a candidate that they should have said, because Steve Bisciotti loves this process. He loves it. So should they have said, the hell with the process, this guy is wildly qualified, he's exactly what we're looking for, let's just hire him. And I think there's an interesting debate to be had about that. And I don't know what the correct answer is in the end. Like, I was very interested in Kevin Stefanski. He had probably moved to my top spot on my list. But I understand why the Ravens want to have this thorough process. I mean, they added 2 more first interviews after we thought their first interviews were done. They got to 17 known candidates. As yesterday they added Anthony Campanile, the defensive coordinator from the Jaguars. And then today, Mike Kliss in Denver reported that Darren Rizzi, the special teams coordinator, of course the Ravens have had some success hiring special teams coordinators, Darren Rizzi got an interview as well. So that's 17 known candidates for the job. It's an unbelievably thorough process that they've been through. It's fair to question whether or not maybe Kevin Stefanski was good enough that you should have said, the hell with the process. We're hiring Kevin Stefanski. That's what we're doing. They decided they wanted the process more than they wanted Kevin Stefanski. I'll understand that. You know, if in 2 years the Falcons are humming along and the Ravens coaching hire doesn't work out, we'll obviously question that. But I get it. I get why that was their decision, that they want the process to play out. So they're on to second interviews. We already know that getting second interviews include Anthony Weaver, who we're about to talk about with John Congemi in a minute. We know that Joe Brady, the Bills' offensive coordinator, is getting a second interview. Jeff Zrebiec says today that Jesse Minter, unsurprisingly, will be on the list of second interviews for the Baltimore Ravens this week. And that's a little bit different because this week you can still only talk to coaches whose teams aren't still in the playoffs. So if they want to bring in Clint Kubiak or Chris Shula or Nathan Shieldhouse or either the Broncos coaches, actually any of the 3 Broncos coaches, Darren Rizzi, along with Vance Joseph and Davis Webb, they can't do that this week. Which makes some wonder if they might just pull the trigger. You're watching other teams hire their coaches. Jeff Hafley also goes to Miami yesterday, although Jeff Hafley was never connected to the Ravens job. A little surprising, given his history with Zay Flowers in particular. But if you watch more teams go ahead and hire their coaches, do you get itchy on the trigger finger? Or do you want to keep waiting this out to make sure you can bring in Chris Shula next week or Clint Kubiak next week or any of these coaches on the teams that are still in the playoffs to play out the process fully? It will be interesting to see that over the next day or two with the Ravens as to whether if they bring in Jesse Minter and he just bowls them over, do they just say the hell with it, process over, we're hiring our guy, he'll be at the Senior Bowl, that's the end of it. Or whether they stay completely true to what Steve Bisciotti says they want to do and they want to bring everybody in person for second interviews, and so they wait and say, we will not hire a coach. Even if other teams are hiring their guys, we are going to wait until next week so that we can bring in everybody for an in-person interview. We will find out. As we mentioned, we know at least a couple of the second interviews that have been lined up, and one of those is with Dolphins defensive coordinator, I guess now former Dolphins defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, a beloved former Baltimore Raven. Let's find out a little bit more about what Weave's been doing in Miami, and we'll talk a bit about Mike McDaniel as well, joining us now. He covers the Dolphins for CBS 4 in Miami, and he is a former Baltimore Stallion. He is John Congemi, and he is back with us now here on GCR. John, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you as always, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
No problem, Glenn. Glad to join you, buddy.
John, I guess let me start with the McDaniel side of this before we get to Anthony Weaver. Are you of the belief that Mike McDaniel, that the bloom isn't off the rose, that he is still absolutely the offensive mind and the potential leader of men that he was when he arrived in Miami and when the Dolphins at times were winning incredibly over the course of his tenure?
I would say yes, with the caveat of depending on what your locker room and what your leadership on your team is, and if you have people within those walls that can manage the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of a season. Mike's a great football mind. He's a good person. He's a smart, intelligent, dynamic offensive football coach. He will scheme you to death. He's not afraid to run it north and south. He will do what needs to be done on that side of the football. And as a head coach, I think the jury is still out. I think you still have question marks to say, is he the guy that you want standing up in front of that locker room, of that meeting room, and directing your franchise? I haven't seen enough evidence in his time in Miami to say that he can't do that. He just does it in a different way, and is that way accepted by most importantly, the ownership and the general manager and the players in that room? And then secondarily, is it interpreted in the proper way by the media so that message gets conveyed in a way that you go, okay, I get it? Or is it the opposite of, man, this guy's not coming from the same, playbook or blueprint that I'm used to, and it just doesn't seem like his message is concrete enough for me to say, yeah, that's my guy.
Boy, everything that you just said there is kind of the conversation that I feel like we've been having about Mike McDaniel, John, which is we've all seen the press conferences and the ones that went viral and the stammering. And did he ever lose the players in the process? Did they ever start to doubt him as a leader, or was that more of a public perception because of those kind of weird press conferences that we're talking about?
Winning record down the stretch, I don't know if that indicates he didn't have the guys playing hard for each other and for him ultimately and for the organization. I think they played out the stretch, with the roster that they had as well as they could have. I don't know if his message ever didn't resonate, because it was a player-driven locker room. It was a player-driven team. It was a player-driven outcome in terms of effort. Now, schematically, I don't think he ever gave up on the players. I think he gave them every chance to win on every Thursday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday night football, Sunday afternoon, Monday night football, whenever they lined up. Mm-hmm. He gave them the best chance to win. And with with who he had to play with in terms of who was available, I thought it was very complimentary, both player to coach and coach to player, that they gave it their all.
If for some reason he is not hired by any of the teams that have a vacancy, how excited would you be if you were a team that was able to get Mike McDaniel as your offensive coordinator at this point?
I think you would have to be very excited, because, man, now he's the mad scientist in the room by himself, and all he has to do is worry about that side of the football. And in terms of motions and formations and schematically, the way he designs run blocking and the type of players that they're looking for and what they can do with the personnel. I mean, just think about all of the I would think, if I was Mike McDaniel, what I could do with Lamar Jackson in terms of in this offense and the multiple tight ends and the wide receivers and the running back. I mean, I would be more excited if I was Mike McDaniel to get the opportunity in Baltimore than maybe even Baltimore fans are going, well, we don't know, we're not sure. Mm-hmm. I think he would do just fine. Yes.
I like the sounds of it. I think a lot of people around here were hoping that maybe it could be like a Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniel reunion, but obviously that's out of play because Saleh's headed to Tennessee. John Congemi is with us here on GCR. John, obviously the one that we know that's coming in for a second interview is someone we know very well in Baltimore, and it's former Raven and former Ravens assistant Anthony Weaver, who, as humans go, as leaders of men go, there are few that I have more reverence for than Anthony Weaver, but it was interesting. The reason why Anthony Weaver left Baltimore was because he didn't get the defensive coordinator job a couple years ago when it was available. It instead went to Zach Orr. That didn't work out so great for the Ravens, but I wonder from a pure X's and O's standpoint, what did Anthony Weaver do as defensive coordinator? Because on paper and what we saw, it didn't seem like it was overwhelming, the job that Anthony Weaver did as DC.
No, I would agree. I think you had it was much the same tenure as Mike McDaniel as the head coach. I would say when things were good, you were going, yeah, this is our guy. We've got our defense is dominant. We've given him different looks, and he blitzes at the right time. He plays it conservative at the right time. He's got good people. He's got good assistants around him. When things went bad, there was miscommunications in the secondary, and we weren't aligned properly. And I was supposed to be outside shade here, and I was inside shade, and that wasn't communicated. And I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what we're trying to do here. That was the theme from the locker room or the fan base of the Dolphins. It seemed like it followed the roadmap of the team. So I don't know if that's a true indication of Anthony Weaver's full fingerprints, for the tenure he was with the Miami Dolphins. When it was good, it was pretty good. When it was off, you gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards and a lot of third downs, and you kind of had it left your head scratching like, what are we doing? We were just last week, we got off the field, we were 2 for 10 on third down.
Right.
We gave up under 17 points, and then all of a sudden, to an underwhelming offense, you give up 31, you're over 50% on third down, and you didn't lose much personnel from week to week. So I think Anthony Weaver is a quality coach. I don't know. I know he's a leader of men. I know guys followed what he said. I just don't know. I wasn't in the room, so I can't say.
Right.
But communication-wise, I'm not so sure if everybody was on the same page all the time.
I think what it sounds like, John, and John Congemi is with us on GCR. It sounds like for his qualities, the argument is made that maybe he's just that football CEO type of leader, and that's sort of what John Harbaugh was in Baltimore for 18 years. He was a special teams guy. He was not.
Yeah, and that's okay if you have the right people around you.
Yeah,
that's perfect, right?
Yeah, and I guess is that what it feels like? Maybe Anthony Weaver, you wouldn't necessarily want him to be the head coach who's also your defense coordinator. You might still need to hire an X's and O's guys to be your defensive coordinator if Anthony Weaver is your head coach.
And why not? And I think the second time around, if we can turn the page real quickly to McDaniel, he might do the same thing.
Interesting.
I mean, he's calling plays, and he's very good at it. But it got to the point where, he was probably one of a zillion in terms of challenges. Now, that's his responsibility. I'm calling plays, and I've got guys that are giving me suggestions. The Dolphins were awful when they went to challenge, right? They didn't win. I think they won 1 or 2 in his whole tenure. So you get back to Anthony Weaver, maybe he is that. He's the leader of men. He stands up in the room, and this is our plan. This is my message. This is the way I want you to play. And he's been around good enough people throughout his career this is my defense coordinator. I trust you. Now I'm going to have some input, but you're ultimately in charge. Same way on offense. You can be that CEO and not have to be in charge of calling plays, but you sure better be good at the other things that you're expected to be good at. And I think Anthony Weaver would be.
John, it's so funny you bring these thoughts up, because I think it's a conversation we've been having where, because it seemed to go south at the end with John Harbaugh, I feel like Ravens fans in particular, and we'll see what the organization wants, but it feels like Ravens fans in particular have wanted the next head coach to have a little bit more to offer X's and O's wise than the last head coach did. And maybe to the point, it sounds good, but is that what you want in a head coach? Do you want your head coach to necessarily be the X's and O's guys, or are you better off having a rock-solid football CEO that can hire well?
Glenn, it seems like these days in the NFL, it changes. The dynamic of good to average to bad changes week to week. And I don't know if it's your head coach that's in charge of one side of the ball. I like my head coach being everybody. I want him to touch all aspects, but I don't need him necessarily to be in charge of one aspect of offense, defense, special teams. I'd rather be in charge of the decisions head coaches make and how your team is structured and how you will play and what your expectations are, and have that mantra drilled in so it becomes second nature to your organization from top to bottom. And let the people that you've trusted, that you've hired, do their job. Because sometimes you've got so much on your plate, you might miss important things that on a daily basis in those meeting rooms that are being communicated, that they have the pulse on, the coordinators and the quarterback coach and the running back coach and the safeties coach. Let them do their jobs because you've hired them to do that.
I feel like there's this really like weird yes, I think you're probably right, John. And then everybody's like, but can it be Sean McVay? Can it be Sean Payton, right? Like somebody who can do all of those things and has something to offer particular X's and O's.
Yeah, and it all depends on the makeup of your football team as well.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Lamar Jackson that is one of the best in the business, but is he the guy that you want making all of those decisions, or is he a better player by getting things the way it's been done over his career so far because he's been so productive? Are you gonna put more on his plate than he's comfortable with because he likes it the way it is, or is he a player that, I want change, I want more? So it all depends on the dynamic of who you have. I mean, Matthew Stafford, I'm sure at some point already knows what McVay's going to call and just would give him the wave from the sideline. I got you.
Yeah.
I know where we're going.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Whereas, it all depends on the dynamic and the expectation you have on that particular player in that room, whether it's the starting linebacker that's communicating the defense, or it's the quarterback, or, any special teams player. But it all depends on what the expectation is that the head coach sets upon those players.
John,
and what they're comfortable handling.
Oh, 100%. No, I completely get that. I'll ask. It feels to me like it would be impossible if, for some reason, it were to be Anthony Weaver, right? That the Ravens hired. Mm-hmm. Is there any world where the dynamic could work that Mike McDaniel could be his offensive coordinator?
Boy, that's a good one. You know what? Mike is of the attitude. I think it would work. I think he would have no problem with it. I don't know at the end of the day if I don't have enough, even being around it as closely as I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think the synergy would be fine. I just don't know if it would ever come to that point where, Anthony in that relationship with Mike would say, hey, we want to reverse roles. I don't know. I think it could work because of the way Mike is. Mike would probably say, yeah, you're paying me enough, I'll do it. Right?
Right.
I got a good team. You got a great quarterback. You got great skilled people. You got a heck of a Hall of Fame running back. I think I can do it. You got a great offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? It would probably put more shine on him, and probably give Anthony Weaver a little bit more pats on the back to go, hey, that was a big time move by you. That was smart because Mike's such a great offensive mind.
Of course.
With that type of talent to deal with, I'd be jumping. If I was Mike, I'd be jumping at the bit to do it.
It's just, I never know. And I understand what you're saying. Like, knowing, what we know of Mike McDaniel, he doesn't seem like the type of ego guy that would say, there's no way I could never do that. But it still feels like that there's something difficult about that. Like, it's a weird.
It is. And I think that would be a tough one to cross. But once you've crossed it, I think when you realize what you have to work with in that situation, you look around the league and, Tampa Bay needs an OC. I don't know if Philly's hired anybody. I don't know if, the Titans obviously have hired anybody.
Right.
But there's a ton of offense around the league. Who's better skill-wise or equal to or on par with Baltimore? Not many.
It seems like that's why we've thought that the Ravens had the upper hand in this process because it was the best job. Now, it turns out there are still other coaches that want jobs and aren't going to just sit around and wait for the process to play out. But we've thought that's been the case. John, really appreciate you taking the time for us, man. Thank you for hopping on. And if the Ravens do hire one of these two guys in the next couple weeks, you better believe we'll probably be following up with you. Thanks for taking the time for us.
Glad to help out.
Thanks, John. John Congemi with us here on GCR, former Baltimore Stallions quarterback, now CBS 4 down in Miami. Appreciate him taking the time. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. CountySports.zone is the website for you to find out the latest in high school sports. We're getting deep into the throes of basketball season. Going to start moving into the playoffs here pretty quickly, and you'll be able to follow along. Everything you need to know, CountySports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. We will travel elsewhere in the AFC East. Joe Brady's getting a second interview with the Ravens. Sean McDermott, is he someone the Ravens should try to talk to? Katherine Fitzgerald covers the Bills for the Buffalo News and is a Baltimore native. She's going to join us next to tell us all about them right here on Glenn Clark Radio.
The weather's getting cooler, so when you and your family are picking out a place to dine, be it lunch or dinner, let's make it nice and easy. Now, with two great locations, the Costas Inn remains your #1 destination. Whether you want to get steamed crabs and the full Costas menu out at the original location at 4100 North Point Boulevard, or sample the complete menu minus the steamed crabs at the new location above the grandstand at the Timonium Racetrack. Costas is your place to go. Check out the website, CostasInn.com, for a look at the menu, and if you want to plan that crab feast, call 410-477-1975. The Costas Inn.
Get in the game with Volo Sports. With over 15 sports to choose from, join a league or grab a Volo membership for discounted play, free daily pickups, fitness classes, and exclusive events. But the best part? A portion of every league fee helps the Volo Kids Foundation provide free sports to over 5,000 kids across Baltimore City each year. Don't miss out. Early pricing for the winter season ends December 12th. Final registration deadline is January 15th. Sign up now at volosports.com/Baltimore.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and it's our annual Best of issue, celebrating the top people, performances, and moments of 2025 in local sports. On the cover, we recognize 4 of the most significant athletes of the year: Orioles pitcher Trevor Rogers, Navy quarterback Blake Horvath, Maryland basketball star Derek Queen, and our 2025 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Ravens safety Kyle Hamilton. Pressbox is available for free at over 250 locations throughout the region, including your Baltimore area High's dairy stores. Plus, you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
This January, go for the gold at Live Casino and enter to win the ultimate winter experience. Earn the entire month of January, and on Saturday, January 24th, you could be one of 25 lucky winners to take their place on the podium and win a share of $50,000 in prizes, including a trip to the 2026 Winter Games in Milano Cortina. Let the games begin at Live Casino. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Let's move elsewhere in the AFC East to talk about another candidate who is getting a second interview in Baltimore to be the next Ravens head coach. She covers the Buffalo Bills for the Buffalo News, and she's one of ours. She's one of our own. She's a Timonium native, the pride of NDP, like Mrs. Clark, actually, although a few years apart. She is Katherine Fitzgerald, and she is joining us now here on GCR. Katherine, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to have you on. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, of course, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
I have some affinity. My wife was class of at NDP as well, so
go Blazers.
Yeah. It's great to have you back here. Thank you for taking the time. Katherine, I guess let me start with, before we get to Joe Brady, who we know is a candidate. Obviously, I know it's been a very busy 48 hours for all of you up in Buffalo. Your level of surprise that Sean McDermott was fired by the Bills, and your thoughts on whether Sean McDermott should be like a you should reach out immediately type of candidate for the Ravens or any of these jobs that are still available in the NFL.
Yeah, I think my surprise came more from the same, at the same time, general manager Brandon Beane was promoted.
Yeah.
Beane and McDermott came into Buffalo around the same time, and they've worked together so closely, they called him McBean, that brain trust of how they've been over the years. But I think it's been a little fractured lately. Obviously, team owner Terry Pegula made the move to fire McDermott, which I was a little surprised by, but I was more surprised that it happened along with a promotion for Beane, who will now oversee the coaching search. You look at kind of the roster construction of the Bills the last year. Injuries were a big part. I don't want to take away from that. That's not something you can predict, but there were questions at wide receiver. There were questions at defensive line. And so for McDermott to kind of be the fall guy here, I was a little surprised how it played out. That being said, I think he should definitely be getting calls from, any team that has an opening right now. You look at what he was able to do, Buffalo, not just, game-wise, but culture-wise here of turning this team around, turning this franchise around. I think he's someone that, should get a look from a lot of teams just for his leadership abilities.
I feel like the questions about Sean McDermott are not dissimilar to the questions that we asked in Baltimore about John Harbaugh in relation to obviously having, two of the best quarterbacks in all of football in these two cities, which is like, how much credit do they get? Is it more that they won because of the quarterback and a failure that they didn't win more as the head coach? So I guess how much credit does Sean McDermott deserve for the success the Bills have had, and how much blame should he have gotten for their failures to get through and break through, much like the Ravens, and get to a Super Bowl despite having an MVP quarterback?
It's a great question, and I think those parallels are definitely there, and that'll factor into the coaching search for both of these teams as well, where these franchises, there's pressure in both of these cases of whoever they're looking for next, they need to win. With Sean McDermott, he is a defensive-minded coach. So I think it's interesting. You look at that dynamic with Allen where, some of the credit for Allen's development goes more to a Brian Dable or someone like that. But I think still McDermott was able, as a coach I think the stability is what stands out to me of what they were able to do with Josh Allen for a while, of having a Dable in place to kind of guide a young quarterback along, sticking with him. But I think, it's an interesting dynamic when you talk a defensive coach and a coordinator, or a quarterback. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's very fair, right? Because it's not, he's obviously not personally responsible, right, for the development of Josh Allen or anything along those lines.
Right, but I think their relationship was still really important.
Okay.
They had a strong relationship, most definitely. Josh Allen always had high praise for Sean, and I think something cool to see in McDermott's time in Buffalo, I covered 5 seasons of him, was how he evolved as a coach, where, he's still working with Allen from a leadership committee perspective, Allen being a captain and the Bills having a 10-person committee of leaders who worked with McDermott to kind of say, like, here's what's working for the team, here's what's not working. It changed practice schedule as an example. So I think, there was still that strong relationship between them, just a little different than necessarily an X's and O's perspective.
She is Katherine Fitzgerald. She covers the Bills for the Buffalo News. She's with us here on GCR. Katherine, the coach that we know the Ravens are interested in, are going to bring in for a second interview, is Joe Brady. And I have this very complicated feeling about Joe Brady because I was someone who was very high on him at LSU and thought for sure he was on the track to being an NFL mastermind. It didn't work out in Carolina. Then it does seem to work out in Buffalo. And so it feels like the type of coach the Ravens should be interested in. But every time I'm on the social media, all I hear is Bills fans who are furious about Joe Brady and want to see him fired. So I'm kind of confused here. Is that, hey, fans are just wildly irrational and they want everybody fired whenever the team, loses a game? Or is there a complication, something that's been strange about Joe Brady as offense coordinator and play caller in Buffalo?
I think the answer is that it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
As many things are,
Yep.
where there is definitely frustration with the fan base here about Brady. Those screen passes really got to fans here where they just wanted to see more downfield passing when you have a player like Josh Allen. But he, the downfield passing regressed a bit this year. But I would say still there are, you look at Brady having worked with Joe Burrow, having worked with Josh Allen. I think his relationship with a quarterback is something that the Ravens are definitely going to look at. What his relationship with a Lamar Jackson would be and how he's able to build off that. There's definitely, this offense took steps in other ways. You look at what James Cook was able to do in the run game, having that NFL rushing title. But I think the frustration from the fan base came sometimes from wanting to see a more explosive Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of that I think is the supporting cast.
Right.
Right. So Joe Brady's mantra that he preached here in Buffalo that I can imagine he would take to another team is everybody eats. That was his motto of how this offense is going to run, of everyone's going to have a chance to make plays. But that also happens a bit because of who you have on the roster. That made it a necessity that they had to spread the ball around, where they didn't always have, the big playmakers that they needed in the passing game. But they got creative with it. They had tight ends involved, running backs involved in the passing game. I think he does a good job of playing to the strengths of his roster. And I think that'll be really important, when other teams are looking at Brady, as he has a few interviews lined up.
This is the part that jumps out at me. The Bills had the number 4 offense in the NFL, despite not having any, I don't even know that there's a legit number 2. I mean, I guess Khalil Shakir, maybe I'm being a little disrespectful to him when I say that, but I mean, with scrap heap wide receivers, right? Like, they had the number 4 offense in the NFL with that group. Now, I'm sure somebody would say, right, that's because they have Josh Allen. Like, that's the reason why they had it. But should Joe Brady receive more credit for the fact that the offense was that productive, despite the fact that they had, a ragtag group of wide receivers? This is not personal towards any of these guys. I think we can be honest about the group of wide receivers they had.
Yeah, I mean, they had guys who were healthy scratches throughout the season. Brandon Cooks came in late November and was immediately, Josh's second most trusted target. And I think that says a bit about the rest of the group. I would say, like I mentioned before, how Brady plays to strengths of players. I would look at Jackson Hall as the rookie tight end as an example, where, the Bills ended up doing more 2 tight end sets, even 3 tight end sets because of their personnel there. Last year, they instead, before they had Hall, they led the league in their jumbo package usage. But this year he was like, no, we're going to go a different route because of who we have. So I think he does deserve credit for the offense in the sense of, finding strengths of players, using them to his advantage, using them with Josh Allen, even when, there aren't the playmakers that maybe merit being with Josh Allen, if that makes sense.
It's what I'm sort of thinking about, right? Like, as I try to measure Joe Brady is, I think the Ravens have a better supporting cast around, and so I would like to think that would be the type of success that he could replicate, if not, improve upon, given the supporting cast here. Katherine, is Joe Brady ready to be the head coach of an NFL team that just fired their coach because they want to win a Super Bowl right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. He is, I know the Ravens in their DaCosta in his end of season press conference was saying how they want someone who can really connect with players, someone who can relate to them, but then still turn around and be a leader, and I think Joe Brady, this Bills offense has really latched on to him. Obviously, it would be a big step taking over an entire team. But I think it's an interesting dynamic where he's very monotone's not the right word, but in press conferences, he's very reserved. He's a little quieter, but then Bills players will always tell us about the juice that he brings to meetings, about how he feels like a human energy drink. And so I know he is able to flip it on for players and relates really well to them. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into being a head coach than just relating to your players. But I think if you start with just the quarterback relationship, I think he's going to be able to build a strong bond with whoever his quarterback ends up being, and everything else will trickle from there.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, and I think that obviously everybody always talks about the idea of like winning the interview, right? That you're going to wow them over in an interview, but I think that right now the Ravens uniquely, they had that guy. I think they need some X's and O's help. They need someone that can be a difference maker in solving the problem, and so I think that's why Joe Brady might be a bit more intriguing in this process. What are the Bills going to be looking for in a head coach right now, Catherine?
That is a great question because I think Terry Pegula is a little hard to predict, the team owner. Like I mentioned earlier, Brandon Beane, the general manager, is going to lead the coaching search. This is a high-pressure job for whichever candidates they're looking for. Something I want to note in that Beane promotion is that whoever they hire, the next head coach of the Bills will also now report to Brandon Beane as opposed to reporting to Terry Pegula. So they're changing the power structure within Buffalo. I think that'll kind of change the tenor of some of the candidates they're bringing in. If there's a veteran head coach out there who doesn't want that power structure, I'll be interested to hear if that impacts who's open to the job. I can see them switching to an offensive-minded coach just to try to maximize Josh Allen. I imagine they'll be open. Obviously, they just had Sean McDermott on the defensive side. But I wouldn't be surprised to see kind of a pivot to the offense.
Interesting. Very interesting. I see here that it's 13 degrees today in Buffalo, so enjoy your perfectly balmy day.
I'll be staying inside as long as possible.
Catherine, really appreciate taking the time for us back here today. It's at KFitz134 on Twitter, correct, is where folks can be giving you a follow?
Right. Yep, that's correct.
Catherine, thanks for doing this. No doubt we'll have plenty of reasons to be in touch moving forward. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Katherine Fitzgerald of the Buffalo News. I'm in the weird place with all of these candidates that we've discussed this morning, right? Both the Dolphins connections and the two Bills connections. I was talking. I think Griffin's back tomorrow, and I was going to task him with maybe making a new board for us to do the power my updated power rankings of who I think the Ravens should hire. And I say that because the bummer is Robert Saleh would have been on that top 5 list before last night and him taking a job. I think I was at originally Stefanski would have been, if you had talked to me on Saturday and said, what's your top 5 at the moment, would have been Stefanski 1, Kubiak 2, Flores 3, Saleh 4, Minter 5, I think. And so then you take Stefanski off the list, and that bumps up everybody by 1 spot. So now Saleh's number 3, but now Saleh's off the list. So what is my list then? I guess it's Kubiak 1, Flores 2, by default Minter 3. But I'm sort of saying that by default. I'm not opposed to Jesse Minter. I'm just not quite as enamored with Jesse Minter as others are. I think there are other candidates that I look at and I say, I think they're more qualified than Jesse Minter is. And the hope of what Jesse Minter can be, I understand why. Look, everybody's looking at Jesse Minter and saying, that's Mike McDonald, right? You missed your Mike McDonald, now go get the next Mike McDonald. And maybe he will be. Maybe. But as I said before, I'm always going to lean offense more than defense. And so maybe I start reconsidering some of these younger coaches that I've been a bit more dismissive of. The Nate Scheelhouses of the world, the Davis Webbs of the world that I've said, are you really going to hire someone who's never been a coordinator to be the head coach of a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl right now? Maybe I reconsider that based on my affinity for hiring an offensive mind if I were to redo my top 5 for tomorrow. I value experience. And that was really why Kevin Stefanski, the combination of experience and offense, was like that. That's my guy. That's why I had vaulted him to the top of the list, even above Clint Kubiak, who you all know I originally had said was my top guy. This group of guys, they're all interesting for different reasons, but I just don't know that I'm convinced any of them are the guy. I love Anthony Weaver as a human being. But the lack of X's and O's success for the Miami Dolphins defense does stand out to me. I don't know what to make of that. And would it have been the same had he been defensive coordinator in Baltimore? I'm not sure. The weird part to me is that the players, like I think this story is known, that a number of the players were disappointed that it was Zach Orr that got the job, but not necessarily because of Anthony Weaver. They wanted Denard Wilson, who ended up the DC in Tennessee. The players weren't like overly like rooting for it to be Anthony Weaver then. I don't know what that tells me. I love Anthony Weaver, the man. The man. That dude, I want him to be my dad, like, which makes no sense. But, like, I just love Anthony Weaver. But has he earned being the head coach of a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl right now? I don't know. It's a tough one for me. And as a lot of people have pointed out, I think the biggest argument against Anthony Weaver is you would say, well, he's here to be your football CEO, and you just had your football CEO. You did the football CEO thing. It feels like it's time to do something else. Someone who can make more of an X's and O's difference and maybe isn't quite as buttoned up and perfect when it comes to the football CEO side of things. So Mike McDaniel obviously is not going to be perfect and buttoned up as far as a football CEO is concerned. No. That's not him. You need only look at him and sort of see that that's not his gig. But as John Congemi brings up, like that stammering and stumbling, and I mean, he became the butt of all of the jokes on the. We couldn't believe he survived the season in Miami after the one press conference where that
was shocking.
And you want to be sensitive to, like, some people might just have speech impediments and some people, but we've never heard that before. That just seemed like someone who was overwhelmed, couldn't do it anymore. Now, John Congemi brings up the team didn't quit. They were still competitive. Even after they traded away their guys, they won football games. That stuff does matter. And obviously, he would have a massive upgrade from Tua Tagovailoa to Lamar Jackson. And he got the best. Like, we do forget how good it was going for a bit in Miami.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, them coming into Baltimore and destroying a Mike McDaniel defense.
Obliterated it.
Like, that happened. Now, a year later, they got destroyed.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that was the end for the Mike McDaniel Dolphins. Like, they've never recovered from being pants the way that they were pantsed in Baltimore that day. But, is that 23, I guess? That was so it was 2022 where they came into Baltimore and and that was the day we all looked and said, Kyle Hamilton is what now? Like, you think
this is supposed to be the guy?
And we were like, and you hired who as the defensive coordinator? To then in late 2023, obviously, they got just throttled by the Ravens at home. But we forget how good it was going with Tua when he was healthy and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like they had a thing. They were humming for a little bit. And then it all kind of went to hell after 2023. Like 2023 up until December, the high water mark for the Dolphins, and then all falls apart. He'd definitely be in a better circumstance as the head coach in Baltimore. But, would you rather him just be a mad scientist at this point? Stop worrying about all the other stuff. Stop worrying about being the guy that has to answer the questions. Stop worrying about the football seat. Just be an offensive mind. And it feels like ideally that's what Mike McDaniel should be at this point in his career. It just kind of gives you the vibes that maybe he's not, at least at the moment, maybe he's not a head coach. The two in Buffalo, Sean McDermott, it just sort of feels like it's the John Harbaugh thing. You're just switching out one John Harbaugh for another John Harbaugh. Someone who you think is a very capable coach, but always seemed to come up short when it mattered the most. For myriad different reasons. Again, some that are not your fault whatsoever. Maybe some bad luck, right? Like, all of the above. It's not even just the call in overtime the other day that everybody's harping on that I still think was correct. But, like, late in regulation, as has been pointed out, and Chase Daniel did a video about it online, Dawson Knox was wide open, and if Josh Allen hits him, that's probably a game-winning touchdown at the end of regulation. And they don't have to deal with any of that stuff. It's not Sean McDermott's fault, but it just always kind of seems to happen. And so it just sort of feels like you're moving the furniture around. Like everything would be different if we just, instead of this chair, we have a different chair. Like if we just go bring that chair in, suddenly this show will have a completely different audience. Like I can't get it fired up about Sean McDermott. Is he qualified? He's unbelievably qualified for the job. Incredibly qualified. But it just feels like it's not really that dramatically different. And Joe Brady, I am torn about Joe Brady. Like that would be the one that I would be like the most interested in diving deep on. Because as we just talked about with Katherine Fitzgerald, I don't think it was Joe Brady's idea to not have any wide receivers. I don't think it was Sean McDermott's idea to not have any wide receivers either. That's why it is bizarre that Brandon Beane gets promoted in all of this. Had no wide receivers on the team, and Bill's ownership was like, we need more of that guy. That guy's got to have more power. Got to give him more. I don't think it was their idea. And yet, with no wide receivers, they had the number 4 offense in football. And that's obviously in large part because Josh Allen is Josh Allen. And they had something really working in the run game with Dalvin Cook this year, and there's a lot to like. Or it's not Dalvin Cook. James Cook, of course. Dalvin's cousin? Are they cousins? Are they brothers? I don't remember which one they are. I think they're cousins. But they had really something working with James Cook. I think that, like, if I was being objective, I would say that Joe Brady deserves a great deal of credit for the fact that the offense was as good as it was, despite the fact that they had no wide receivers. They're brothers. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And yet, every time you talk to a Bills fan, when a tweet goes up, Joe Brady interviewing with the Ravens, all you see is a bunch of people, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Get rid of him.
Yeah, it's not very reassuring as a Ravens fan.
And that's the, like, sometimes you're inclined to say, well, the fans are idiots. Because to be fair, there's a lot of Ravens fans who are poking fun at Giants fans who are excited about John Harbaugh. But I think John Harbaugh is an excellent hire for the New York Giants.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he's an outstanding hire for the New York Giants. But there are mouth breathers who are, ha, now you guys are going to suck. Like, the internet is a terrible place.
Yeah, it's awful.
And so I think the way that I asked the question to Katherine Fitzgerald, she's reflected, like, yes, there's probably some criticism that's deserved of Joe Brady, and he probably did throw too many screens. But at the same time, he also did coordinate offense that had no wide receivers and yet was a top 5 offense in football. That feels like it matters. But I get it. A lot of that goes towards Josh Allen. And it's why I'm struggling to be enamored with any of them. I think they're all qualified, and all of the 4, if I rank them, probably Brady, then McDaniel, then McDermott, then Weaver. But, I mean, first of all, we don't even know there's a connection with McDermott. The Ravens, to this point, we have no known interest from the Ravens in Sean McDermott. To be fair, it just happened a day ago. So maybe today we'll find out they do have interest in Sean McDermott. But I don't know where they would be on my list. Like, Joe Brady's probably the highest on my list because I'm interested in an offensive mind. Would I put him over Jesse Minter? I don't think so. I think he would come in the back end of that top 5 at the highest. When we come back in, I've got some tidbitty stuff for you today. We'll do tubular, and we will talk about, we'll play the role of fashion police when we come back in. It's the role that Xavier and I were born to play. If you look at us, you see those guys, fashion-forward fellas. So we're going to break down a new fashion trend that's coming to Baltimore. We'll do that next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Get in the game with Volo Sports. With over 15 sports to choose from, join a league or grab a Volo membership for discounted play, free daily pickups, fitness classes, and exclusive events. But the best part? A portion of every league fee helps the Volo Kids Foundation provide free sports to over 5,000 kids across Baltimore City each year. Don't miss out. Early pricing for the winter season ends December 12th. Final registration deadline is January 15th. Sign up now at volosports.com/Baltimore.
This January, go for the gold at Live Casino and enter to win the ultimate winter experience. Earn the entire month of January, and on Saturday, January 24th, you could be one of 25 lucky winners to take their place on the podium and win a share of $50,000 in prizes, including a trip to the 2026 Winter Games in Milano Cortina. Let the games begin at Live Casino. At Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The weather's getting cooler, so when you and your family are picking out a place to dine, be it lunch or dinner, let's make it nice and easy. Now, with 2 great locations, the Costas Inn remains your #1 destination. Whether you want to get steamed crabs and the full Costas menu out at the original location, check out the website CostasInn.com for a look at the menu. And if you want to plan that crab feast, call 410-477-1975. The Costas Inn.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Looking for Baltimore's premier waterfront dining experience? Head to Nick's Fish House, located in the Baltimore Peninsula. Enjoy crabs all year long, plus happy hour Monday through Thursday from 3 to 6. Planning a celebration? From rehearsal dinners to corporate crab feasts, Nick's is the spot to make it unforgettable. And the fun doesn't stop there. Live music fills the air every Thursday through Sunday. Check out the full lineup at nicksfishhouse.com. Nick's, it's where Baltimore comes to eat, drink, and play by the water.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we are winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program. But before we do that, we've got to really dive in and give you our fashion instincts. As you may have seen this morning, the Baltimore Orioles have unveiled a new hat that they will be wearing as an alternate cap this season. It is sort of akin to the City Connect hats they were wearing last year. You see they've got this cursive B, like the B from the Baltimore on the road jerseys, and in orange, and then there's the orange bill as well. And a couple people have said, why not an all-black cap with that? I don't know. I think I kind of like it with the orange bill, to be honest with you. I don't mind this at all. I don't really know what the pushback would be on it. I like this better than the. Look, the City Connect uniform to me is one of the worst things the Orioles have ever worn.
Couldn't agree more.
Arguably the worst thing the Orioles have ever worn. I appreciate kind of the story of the pattern, but it does not connect the way that they want it to connect. The truth is, if you're going to do anything alternate, we want more of the Maryland flag.
Absolutely.
That's what we want. We are a very simple people. I mean, we could not be more simplistic about this. What we want is the Maryland state flag. We love the pattern. It works. We wear state flag on everything. It's who we are as people. So whenever they do one of those giveaways that has Orioles and state flag pattern jerseys, we're wearing it. That's what we do. I think they gave those out in 2017, and I still wear them to games to this day.
So many people wear them. You see them everywhere.
That's what we want. We want state flag pattern stuff. Now, I don't know if it's an Orioles thing where they still want people like in Delaware to be Orioles fans. They still want people in the D.C. market to be Orioles fans. In West Virginia, they still claim that as their territory. I don't know if that's the reason why they don't want to do more state flag pattern stuff. Or if it's I really don't know what the answer is. But if we're doing alternate anything, we want alternate with state flag pattern. We want when they put out the first state flag bill of an Orioles hat, I couldn't get to the team store fast enough
Absolutely.
to purchase it. That's what we want. Now, is that a lot for an on-field uniform? Depending on how you use it. Again, when it was just the state flag pattern within the word Orioles, I didn't think it was too much. If you did an entire state flag pattern jersey, that would look very minor league. It would look very low rent. So I don't think they're going to do it. The City Connect uniforms stunk. They were terrible. They were just an abomination. And the Orioles always lost when they wore them on top of it. It was a combination of two.
Very similar to the Great Britain World Baseball Classic jerseys, where it's very bland.
I don't remember the Great Britain.
They were just gray and had Great Britain in blue across. That was it.
Seems dumb.
So
it seems very dumb.
It was pretty dumb.
These hats to me are fine, and I didn't even mind the City Connect hat. The City Connect hat to me was fine. It was a decent hat. It wasn't. I didn't love it. I wasn't like, this is the greatest hat I've ever seen. It was a million times better than the uniform was. The hat was fine. It was the least offensive part of the City Connect uniform. This, I think, is a great hat. I really like this hat. I would wear this hat. I still think I like O's better. I think I like the bird better.
For sure.
But I don't mind the B. It reflects Baltimore, and there's still a sensitivity about that. For years, they didn't put Baltimore on the road jerseys, again, because they were openly courting the D.C. market. They didn't want to go out of their way to advertise Baltimore. They wanted it to be more of a nebulous, or they wanted to be the Athletics. They just wanted to be Orioles for a little while. When the Nationals came along, they were willing to put Baltimore back on the road jerseys. That was an emotional thing. Guys, people your age don't remember this, but the Orioles stunk at the time, and yet they were able to get thousands of people to show up to it. I think it was at the gallery where they did the unveiling of the Baltimore going back on the road jerseys, and it was emotional.
Sure.
Because it was such a miss for such a long time for this franchise to take Baltimore off of the road jerseys that we were just so happy to see it again. It was a really powerful day.
I believe it.
I'll always be in favor of more things that reflect Baltimore. So while this might not be my number one hat, I like this hat. I think it's a good hat. I can't imagine the opposition to it. What would be Why would you be opposed to this hat?
Yeah, I don't think it's too outlandish or crazy in any way. I mean, clearly it's the B. I love the stick figure bird personally. I wish
I don't know why there's such controversy over that.
I love that thing. But yeah, I like them too. I think the cursive B is nice. It's kind of throwback E. I wouldn't necessarily call it a throwback, but has that that energy around it. So
I'm a cartoon bird guy. I like cartoon bird probably first. I like O's as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I like B because it's Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like I'm good with the B and the cursive. It fits the font. Like I just can't imagine anyone having any opposition to that hat. That looks like the type of hat the Orioles should wear. Like that's a good hat. I wouldn't want it to be the primary hat, but I like it as an alternate hat.
Sure.
I think that's a good alternate cap for the Orioles to wear. I'm on board with it entirely. But also in general, give me more state flag. Figure out a way for there to be more state flag involved somehow, because that's who we are and that's what we want.
And it's kind of a no-brainer too. I mean, like you were saying earlier.
There's very few things that we as a people agree on. Very, very few things. But we all want to wear the flag.
Yeah.
It's who we are as a people. We are obsessed with it. Give it to us. That's my fashion take. John in Little Rock checked in earlier. John said, Signetti has built the program to last. He has a massive alumni base that donates, including a prominent billionaire. Yes, Mark Cuban. And it is weird how they keep referencing like they have the oldest living alumni base.
Yeah.
And then I was like, do you have to say living? Do you have to use that word? Because I'm pretty sure if they're dead, they're not an alum anymore. Like, they don't count, right? Like, I understand why they keep saying living alumni base, because they're saying there are schools that have had more people go to them over the years, but like I just don't know. It just feels sort of redundant, like when you use that word whenever they reference it. But yes, they talk about that constantly, and it does help, and it is part of why, as John points out, that Signetti in Indiana gives so much false hope, so to speak. 100%. If you believe that Curt Signetti and what Indiana is doing is proof that any school can do it, you are setting yourself up for insane disappointment. Yes, they have, to an extent, taken advantage of the portal era. They have figured out that you should go shopping for free agent quarterbacks and not, waste your time trying to develop a quarterback. And maybe somebody would say, well, then why is Maryland wasting time trying to develop Malik Washington? Maryland hasn't been able to get a Malik Washington in the transfer portal either. Like, Maryland hasn't been able to get any quarterback. So, yes, if Maryland could get a higher level quarterback, and I get that it's unique with Mendoza because he was a 2-star guy, as we were reminded a bunch of times last night. That is kind of wild. The story of like he wanted to walk on at Miami, and Miami said kick rocks, and
then he just beat him.
I mean, like that is pretty great.
It's movie-esque.
It's pretty great. Like again, having no feelings about either one of these programs whatsoever, and if anything, I guess I have an amount of dislike, because Miami was the when I was a younger man, Miami just kept getting shoved in our faces all the time because they had all the players and the U and the whole thing. And Indiana is in the Big Ten, so why would I like them? I don't want to like Indiana.
No. But out of the
yes,
two,
of the two, obviously,
sure,
yes,
you want the underdog.
Yeah, correct.
And
they were the far more palatable option.
Well, they weren't an underdog.
Yeah, underdog, ironically.
But preseason.
All those things. I'm on board. But yeah, it was, if you had no actual connection to either program, it was kind of hard to not get swept up in all of the subtext with Indiana. So it was very cool. Very cool. All right, tidbit today. We didn't win trivia last night, actually. We finished in second because John Proctor had it. The final was very difficult. It was, what is the largest world capital whose name starts and ends with the same letter and isn't the largest city in their country?
Holy qualifiers. That's a lot.
It's a lot. What is the largest world capital city whose name starts and ends with the same letter and is not the largest city in their country? Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah,
You're not going to come up with it.
I
The
can't
first
even
one,
think
the
of
first
one
one
with
that I
the
thought
same
of was
letters.
Oslo. That's the first city that I came up with.
Okay.
But then we realized that there couldn't be a larger city in Norway. There's no way that there's a
Yeah.
bigger city in Norway than Oslo. Then John Proctor came up with Warsaw in Poland, and we were like, oh yeah, Krakow could definitely be a larger city than Warsaw,
Yeah.
so that one works. And then he threw out Ankara in Turkey, and said, I bet Istanbul is larger.
Right.
And I don't know why, but the rest of us at the table convinced ourselves that Warsaw was probably a larger city than Ankara was, and so we went with Warsaw, and the answer was Ankara, and we lost. And so
Darn.
it's what it is. It's what it is. We had a commanding lead going into the final too, but
Choked it.
So it is. So it is. We lost. The sports questions last night. One was very easy. This skier recently became the oldest American to win a World Cup event.
I have no idea.
She's the only skier you've ever heard of.
I don't know if I've ever heard of a
Oh,
skier.
boy. She used to date Tiger Woods. Wow. You are really checked out, dude. You are very
Yeah, that's
checked
embarrassing.
out. Lindsey Vonn, of course, is the answer to
Oh,
that question.
I know
yes,
Lindsey
you know
Vonn.
Lindsey Vonn.
Yes.
Of course you do.
Oh, what a brain fart.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, that was bad.
Now, if the question was name any other skier, I actually do know Michaela Schifrin, but there's two. There's two.
Yeah.
List of skiers that I could
Sure.
name ever. I got two. So thankfully that wasn't the question.
Well,
Was
good thing
there
I
more
wasn't on your
skiers?
team. I
Well,
would've been
everybody else had the answer. We would have been all right.
That's good.
We would have been all right. And then the other one that I was the only one on the team that knew, because this is a ball buster. The last time Miami played in the national championship game was 2002. Who did they lose to?
I don't know, but I do know that's the game where Ed Reed had the famous locker room interview that
Don't
is that
think
wrong
that
game?
was the game. No.
Oh,
Yeah, I
just
think it was
kidding
a
then.
different game. Yeah.
Just
I
kidding.
know what you're talking about.
I have
It wasn't
I have
that
no
game. I want
idea.
to say that was a Florida State game, maybe.
Oh, was it?
So, yeah, you could just guess. Who did Miami lose the 2002 national championship game to? I alluded to it earlier in the program
Oh my
because
gosh.
the uncle
Yeah.
of the kid who had the interception last night had a very controversial pass interference go against him when he played for Miami in this national championship game.
Georgia.
Not Georgia.
I don't want to just stick with Florida.
Not Florida.
That would be a weird.
Jamari Sharp from Indiana had the interception, and his uncle played for Miami. His uncle, Glenn Sharp. Hey, Glenn, how about that? With two N's.
What a
too.
great name.
How about that? Yeah, Glenn Sharp, who had the pass interference go against him when Miami lost to a Big Ten program.
Okay, that helps. It's not Maryland.
It's not Maryland.
It's not Iowa.
It's not
Iowa
Iowa.
State. It's gonna be. Give me Minnesota.
You think Minnesota won a national
No,
championship in 2002?
no, I'm just so lost.
Who won
I didn't know.
a Big Ten program that won a national championship in 2002? How many Big Ten football programs do you think have won national championships?
3.
Okay. Who?
Indiana.
Well, we know that. That is
Yep.
true. They
Yep.
did one win. They didn't win in 2002.
I don't know. I'm blanking.
Well, you can't. Can you name other Big Ten teams?
Yeah,
Like
Maryland,
Uh-huh.
Iowa State.
No, Iowa State is not in the Big Ten.
Is it not?
No.
Is it
They're in
Big
the Big
12?
Yes.
Oh
boy. Xavier, are you a sports fan?
I am a sports fan. I definitely don't. I don't watch college sports as much. I've gotten more into it
Okay.
this first year. Duke was in the Big Ten before they moved to they were in
No.
the ACC and then
No.
Maryland moved to the Big Ten.
Yeah, that is correct. This is rough.
This is rough.
This is rough.
Maybe I should have brushed up on
Boy,
Big
this is
Ten
rough
teams.
that you can't name the teams of the Big Ten, pal.
Give it to me, Glenn.
Well, it's Ohio State.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
I mean, that's like the
Not
most
great.
obvious.
Yes,
answer
definitely
to
the most obvious answer, but that's okay. Things happen sometimes. That was
I'll do better next time.
not your finest hour, but
Nope.
but life will go on.
Yep.
One other note, as a tidbit was brought to you today by the print issue of Press Box, which is available at your Baltimore area High's Dairy stores for free. Go pick it up today as we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of 2025 in our annual Best of issue. I did find this. One other note, OptaStats had that Fernando Mendoza made some history. And this is he threw 40 or more touchdown passes, never lost a game, never lost a fumble during the course of the season, and won the national championship. No other quarterback in FBS or FCS history has done that in a single season. They also point out that no NFL quarterback that has done that in a single season, but that's an irrelevant. There's only ever been one team that's finished undefeated, so that is a dumb. This is the problem with places like this where they try to make it seem that's no value. Oh, so nobody's done that in the NFL either. Well, one, he didn't do that in the NFL, and he's not going to do that in the NFL because
it's the NFL.
It can't be done. And I understand that it wasn't done in college football until now, but there have been a lot of teams that have gone undefeated in college football. They just didn't have somebody who never lost a fumble during the course of the season, and they didn't play as many games in order to have a quarterback throw 40 touchdowns. It's anomaly as much as it is accomplishment, but it is an accomplishment for sure. Here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise this evening. Tubular is brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour. Whenever the Orioles make a move, you know Stan, Ross, and Luke will be hopping on to talk about it. And every time they do a show, it's brought to you by the Costas Inn with two great locations. The new one in Timonium at the Fairgrounds, the OG North Point Boulevard in Dundalk, where this Thursday night, the great Rick Dempsey will be hanging out from 6 to 8 p.m. just to hang out. As if your trip to Costas Inn wasn't good enough to begin with just because you were at the Costas Inn. Now you're at the Costas Inn with the 1983 World Series MVP, with Uncle Rick. Just hanging out, taking pictures, shaking hands, kissing babies, shaking pictures, kissing hands, whatever he's doing. He's going to be there this Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard in Dundalk. Here's what's coming up tonight, totally tubular-wise. A few things of note. Morgan State is the only local team in action this evening. They host Virginia University of Lynchburg at 6 o'clock. I think that's one of those, because there's fewer teams in the MEAC, they have lesser conference games early on, and so they had just picked up a D3 game as they could get one, so they'll host Virginia University of Lynchburg tonight at 6. The MLB Network for the Baseball Hall of Fame announcement show. The show, I think, starts in the afternoon, but the actual announcement coming up around 6 o'clock. It looks like Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones will both get in to the Hall of Fame based on the way the votes are trending. Andrew Jones will be close. Like, there is still a possibility that he ends up just short based on how the late votes come in, but looks pretty safe that Carlos Beltran will get in after he had been punished for his role in the Astros scandal. But that's 6 o'clock tonight on MLB Network. And Australian Open coverage continues tonight at 9 on ESPN2, 7 on ESPN+, and Francis Tiafoe back in action against Francisco Comisana. Everything else, you can go to glennclarkradio.com and find it there. And that'll do it for us today. Xavier, thank you to you.
Thank you.
Other than the Big Ten stuff, nailed it today.
Appreciate you.
Other than that, appreciate you coming in and helping us out and not letting the place fall apart.
Yeah,
in the process.
thanks for having me.
Thanks to Katherine Fitzgerald of the Buffalo News and John Congemi. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the Archives tab at glennclarkradio.com. I have no idea what we're doing on the program tomorrow. I think Drew will be back, but I don't know that. We'll find out. Griffin will be back, I'm to understand, unless, I don't know, he just decides that he's quit. And then Xavier, we're going to have to talk to. We're going to have to negotiate. We're going to have to do some hard negotiating if that's the case. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel, Costas Inn, Volo Sports, 1-800-GAMBLER, helpmygamblingproblem.org, Nick's Fish House, CountySports.zone, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin still at Griffin_Bass. Where are you on social media, Xavier?
I'm just on Instagram.
All right.
At Xavier.Macaroni17.
Xavier Macaroni. Go follow him there. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Morgan. Duke sucks.